Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the last group of human families board the transport vessels. The big metal doors of New Geneva Station were closing behind them, after 300 years of living and working. With aliens in the Galactic Federation, humans were being told to leave. Jake felt angry but tried not to show it. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. Lieutenant Susan Walsh sat at her computer station, her fingers moving fast across the controls. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and worried eyes. "Sir, all the civilian ships have left the station," Susan said. "The alien fleet is still out there, but they are not stopping us from leaving." Jake nodded. The Federation had made their choice clear. They did not want humans anymore. The aliens thought humans asked too many questions. They thought humans were trouble. For months, the Federation Council had been meeting in secret. Then one day, Ambassador Vex Kaller from the Xanthari Empire came to the human colonies with a message. "You have 30 days to leave all Federation space," the tall, blue-skinned alien had said. His voice was cold and final. "Pack your belongings. Take your ships. Go somewhere else." That was it. No explanation. No chance to argue. 3 centuries of friendship, trade, and working together meant nothing to them. Dr. Richard Hayes walked up to Jake. Rick was 50 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes behind his glasses. He had been the head scientist on New Geneva Station for 10 years. In his hands he carried a small data pad. "Jake, we got everything," Rick said. "All the research files, medical records, and technology blueprints. We downloaded everything. We could fit into our storage drives." "Good thinking, Rick," Jake replied. "We might need all that knowledge where we are going." The humans were heading to a group of star systems far beyond Federation borders. The aliens had looked at these planets before and decided they were not worth taking. They said the worlds were too poor in resources and too far away from important trade routes. The Federation had called them worthless. Jake thought that was funny in a sad way. Years ago, human explorers had wanted to check out those same systems. They had asked the Federation for permission to go there. The aliens had said no. They said it was a waste of time and money. Now, those worthless worlds were going to be humanity's new home. The ship's engine hummed louder as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. Jake looked at his crew. There were 32 people on his ship. Behind them, following in a long line, were 200 more ships carrying the last humans from this part of the galaxy. "Captain," Susan said, "we are getting a message from the Federation fleet." Jake turned to face the main screen. The image of Commander Zexthulan appeared. The Xanthari officer looked bored, like he was reading from a script. "Human vessel Liberty's Dawn," the alien said. "You are cleared to leave Federation space. You have 26 days remaining. Do not return. This transmission is over." The screen went black. Jake clenched his fists. Not even a goodbye. Not even a thank you for all the years humans had helped build the Federation's technology and defended their worlds from pirates and raiders. "Sir," came a voice from behind him. Jake turned to see Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis, his second in command. Paul was a big man with black hair and dark skin. He had been Jake's friend for 15 years. "Paul, what is it?" Jake asked. "The crew is asking questions," Paul said quietly. "They want to know what we are going to do out there. Some of them are scared." Jake understood. The unknown systems they were going to had never been fully explored. There might be dangerous animals, bad weather, or hostile aliens. The Federation had given them basic supplies, but not enough to last very long. They would have to figure out how to survive on their own. "Tell them we are going to do what humans have always done," Jake said. "We are going to survive. We are going to build something better." Dr. Hayes was still standing nearby, listening. "Jake, there is something else you should know," he said. "Before we left, I managed to get some information from the Meridian archives." The Meridians had been another alien race that had once been part of the Federation. 5 years ago, they had just disappeared. The Federation said they had decided to leave, but many humans had doubts about that story. "What kind of information?" Jake asked. Rick looked around to make sure no one else was listening. Data about something called the Devourers, the Meridians. We're trying to warn the Federation about them before they vanished. Jake felt a chill run down his back. He had heard whispers about the Devourers before. Some said they were monsters from the edge of the galaxy. Others said they were just stories, meant to scare children. But if the Meridians had been trying to warn people about them, maybe the stories were true. How serious is this threat? Jake asked. I do not know yet, Rick admitted. The files are encrypted, and it will take time to decode them. But Jake, if the Meridians were right, the Federation might be in real danger. Jake thought about this. The aliens had thrown humans out because they thought they were troublemakers. But what if humans were the only ones who could help when real trouble came? Keep working on those files, Jake told Rick. But keep it quiet. For now, we have enough problems to worry about. The Liberty's Dawn shuddered as it jumped into hyperspace. Through the windows, Jake could see the stars stretching into long lines of light. They were leaving everything they had ever known behind. Susan looked up from her station. Sir, we are getting reports from the other ships. Everyone made the jump safely. We should reach the first system in 3 days. Good, Jake said. Send a message to all ship captains. Tell them we are going to have a meeting when we arrive. We need to start planning how to build our new homes. As the ship flew through hyperspace, Jake thought about the Federation and how they had treated humanity. The aliens had used human workers to build their space stations. They had used human soldiers to fight their wars. They had used human scientists to solve their problems. But when humans started asking for more say in how the Federation was run, the aliens had gotten angry. The Federation was huge. It controlled thousands of star systems and trillions of beings. Humans were just one small species among hundreds. But humans had something the other species did not have. They had curiosity, they had determination. They had the ability to adapt and survive in any situation. Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe being thrown out of the Federation was not the worst thing that could happen. Maybe it was exactly what humanity needed. In the distance, the stars waited. New worlds, new challenges, new opportunities. The Federation had thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had just set humanity free. The Liberty's Dawn and the 200 ships behind it flew on through the darkness of space, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species toward an uncertain but promising future. The aliens had let them leave without a word. Someday they would regret that choice, but that day was still far away. For now, humanity had to focus on surviving and building something new. And if the past was any guide, they would do more than just survive. They would thrive. 5 years had passed since the great exodus from Federation space. Commander Lisa Brooks stood in the observation deck of Unity Station, watching as dozens of cargo ships moved between the 12 worlds humans now called home. The sight still amazed her. What had started as a desperate escape had become something incredible. Lisa was 32 years old, with blonde hair and blue eyes. She had been just a junior officer when the humans left Federation space. Now she was in charge of the entire orbital defense network around New Earth, the largest human colony in the outer spiral. The farming ships are ready for their harvest run to New Texas, reported Dr. Peter Chun from his workstation. Peter was a short man with black hair and glasses. He had been working on new farming methods that could grow food faster and in harsher conditions than anything the Federation had ever developed. Good, Lisa said. How are the crops looking this season? Better than expected, Peter smiled. We are producing 30% more food than we did last year. The new genetic modifications are working perfectly. Lisa nodded. When the humans had first arrived in the outer spiral, they had almost starved. The Federation had given them basic supplies, but not enough to last long. The humans had to learn quickly how to grow food on worlds that were very different from their old colonies, but humans were good at adapting. They had to be. The Federation had never let them develop their own advanced technology before. They had always been told to use Federation equipment and follow Federation rules. Now, without those restrictions, human creativity had exploded. What? about the quantum tunneling experiments? Lisa asked. Amazing progress, Peter said, his eyes lighting up. We are achieving energy efficiency rates that our old Federation equipment could never match. The new reactors are producing 3 times more power while using half the fuel. Lisa walked to the large window that looked out over New Earth. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. In the distance, she could see the lights of New Houston, the capital city. 5 years ago, it had been just empty. Land, now it was home to 2 million people. Captain Stephen Wells entered the observation deck. Stephen was a tall man with brown hair and a serious face. He had been in charge of the deep space monitoring system since the humans arrived in the outer spiral. Lisa, we need to talk, Stephen said. The sensor array is picking up some interesting signals. What kind of signals? Lisa asked. Long-range communications from Federation space, Stephen replied. They are not trying to contact us. These are internal Federation military transmissions. Our new listening posts are intercepting them. Lisa felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Are they planning to attack us? No, Stephen said. That is not what worries me. The transmissions are about something else. Something they are calling Code Black situations. Lisa and Peter followed Stephen to the command center. The room was filled with computer screens and monitoring equipment. Most of it was technology that humans had developed themselves, far more advanced than anything the Federation had ever allowed them to use. Show me, Lisa said. Stephen pressed some buttons, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking different locations. These red dots are places where the Federation has lost contact with entire star systems, Stephen explained. In the past 6 months, 17 Federation colonies have gone completely silent. No distress calls, no final messages, nothing. Peter leaned forward to look at the display. What do you think happened to them? I do not know, Stephen admitted. But the Federation military communications suggest they are very worried. They are moving large fleets to defensive positions around their core worlds. Lisa studied the pattern of red dots. There was something familiar about it, but she could not remember what. Stephen, have you shared this information with Dr. Hayes yet? Lisa asked. Not yet, Stephen replied. But I think we should. He has been working on those old Meridian files for years. Maybe he has found something useful, Lisa nodded. Contact him. Tell him to meet us in Conference Room Alpha in 1 hour. As Stephen left to make the call, Lisa continued staring at the holographic display. The red dots were spreading in a pattern that moved from the outer edges of the galaxy toward the center. It looked like something was eating its way through. Federation space. An hour later, Dr. Richard Hayes arrived at the conference room. Rick looked older than he had 5 years ago. His hair was completely gray now, and he had deep lines around his eyes. He had been working very hard to decode the Meridian archives. Lisa, I think you called this meeting at exactly the right time, Rick said as he sat down. I finally broke through the last encryption layers on the Meridian files. What I found is terrifying. Rick activated a portable holographic projector. The image that appeared showed creatures that looked like nothing Lisa had ever seen before. They were huge, black, and shaped like massive sea creatures. But these things flew through space instead of swimming through water. The Meridians call them the Devourers, Rick explained. They are not from our galaxy. They come from somewhere else, somewhere far away. They travel from galaxy to galaxy, consuming everything they find. Peter leaned forward. Consuming how? They do not just destroy planets, Rick said. They harvest them. They take all the life, all the resources, all the energy, and add it to themselves. They grow stronger with every world they consume. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. Rick, are you saying these things are what destroyed the Federation colonies? I am certain of it, Rick replied. The pattern matches exactly what the Meridians recorded. The Devourers always attack from the galaxy's edge and work their way inward. They target the most populated worlds first because those give them the most energy. Stephen pulled up his own display showing the red dots. If Dr. Hayes Is right, then the Federation is facing complete extinction? These things will not stop until they have consumed every living being in the galaxy. Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see human ships moving between the orbital stations. Families were living their lives, children were playing, people were working to build a better future. All of it could be destroyed by these monsters. How long do we have? Lisa asked. Rick checked his calculations. Based on the Meridian data and the current rate of Federation losses, the Devourers will reach the outer Federation territories in about 18 months. The core worlds have maybe 3 years? And us? Peter asked quietly. We are further from the galaxy's center, Rick said. That might buy us more time. But eventually they will find us too. Lisa turned back to face the group. Have you found anything in the Meridian files about how to fight these things? Rick nodded slowly. The Meridians tried conventional weapons. Missiles, energy beams, nuclear bombs, nothing worked. The Devourers absorb energy attacks and use the power to make themselves stronger. Physical weapons just bounce off their armor. So how do we stop them? Stephen asked. The Meridians never figured that out, Rick admitted. That is why they disappeared, but they did leave us some clues. The Devourers use something called quantum resonance to locate their targets. They can sense any technology that operates. On standard Federation frequencies, Lisa felt a spark of hope, but our technology does not use Federation frequencies. Exactly, Rick said. Our equipment operates on completely different principles. We developed it ourselves without any Federation influence. The Devourers might not be able to detect us as easily. Peter was already thinking ahead. If we can stay hidden from them, we might be able to study them, learn their weaknesses. Or we could run, Stephen suggested. We have fast ships. We could evacuate to another galaxy, Lisa shook her head. 50 million people cannot just run away. And even if we could, what happens when the Devourers finish consuming this galaxy and follow us? The room fell silent. Everyone knew Lisa was right. Running would only delay the inevitable. Humanity had to make a stand somewhere. We need to start preparing, Lisa said. Stephen, expand the sensor network. I want to know the moment these things get close to human space. Peter, focus your research on weapons and defenses. We need something that can hurt the Devourers. What about the Federation? Rick asked. Should we warn them? Lisa thought about that. The Federation had thrown humanity out like garbage. They had treated humans as inferior beings for centuries. They had ignored human warnings and advice. Now they were facing extinction and they did not even know it. Send them a message, Lisa decided. Tell them what we know about the Devourers. They probably will not believe us, but we have to try. As the meeting ended, Lisa remained at the window, looking out at the human colonies. 5 years ago, they had been refugees fleeing from the Federation. Now they might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. The Federation had let humans leave without a word. They had thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had created the only force that might be able to save them all, but first, humanity had to figure out how to save itself. The first Federation distress signal arrived on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Carl Rodriguez was reviewing the latest fleet reports when the communication array started beeping with an urgent message. Carl was a tough man in his 50s, with gray hair and scars from old battles. He had been chosen to lead the human military forces 2 years ago when it became clear that war was coming. Sir, we are receiving a priority emergency broadcast from Federation space, announced Communications Officer Betty Scott. Betty was a young woman with red hair and freckles. She had been monitoring Federation communications for months, but this was the first time they had sent a message that was not coded. Carl looked up from his desk. What kind of message? It is a general distress call, Betty replied, her voice shaking. They are reporting massive casualties and requesting immediate assistance from any available forces. Carl felt his heart beat faster. After 7 years of complete silence from the Federation, this was the last thing he had expected. He walked over to Betty's workstation. Put it through, Carl ordered. The hologram that appeared showed a Xanthari officer. Carl recognized the blue skin and tall frame of the alien race that had been most vocal about kicking humans out of the Federation. But this officer looked terrible. His usually perfect uniform was torn and covered in blood. His eyes were wide with terror. "This is Fleet Commander Zex Thulin of the Xanthari Defense Force," the alien said, his voice breaking. "We are under attack by an unknown hostile force. Repeat, we are under attack. Our defensive fleets have been completely destroyed. We are requesting immediate military assistance from any allied forces in the area. Please respond. Please, someone respond." The transmission cut to static, then started repeating automatically. Colonel Danny Foster entered the command center. Danny was Carl's second in command, a short man with black hair and intelligent eyes. He had been helping to train the human military forces for the past 3 years. "Sir," Danny said, "we are detecting similar distress signals from all over Federation space. 17 different territories are sending out emergency calls. All of them are reporting the same thing: massive attacks by unknown enemies." Carl stood silent for a long moment. The human intelligence networks had been tracking the Devourer advance for months. They had sent warnings to the Federation through secret channels, but the aliens had ignored every message. Now the threat was real, and the same Federation that had thrown humans out was begging for help. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Danny asked. "Call an emergency meeting of the Colonial Council," Carl replied, "and prepare the fleet for possible deployment." We always knew this day would come. Within an hour, the leaders of all 12 human colonies were gathered in the command center through holographic communication. Carl looked at their faces on the screens around him. These were the people who had built a new civilization from nothing. They had survived when everyone said they would fail. "You all know why we are here," Carl began. "The Devourers have reached Federation space. The attacks we predicted are happening right now." Governor Maria Santos of New Texas spoke first. She was a middle-aged woman with brown hair and a strong voice. "Carl, we sent them warnings. We told them this was coming. They ignored us completely." "That is true," Carl agreed. "But now they are dying. Billions of innocent people are under attack by monsters that want to consume everything in the galaxy." "Why should we help them?" asked Governor Tom Wilson of New California. Tom was an older man who had never forgiven the Federation for the exile. "They threw us out like garbage. They treated us like we were nothing." Dr. Helen Wright, the head of the Colonial Science Division, appeared on another screen. Helen was a brilliant scientist with short gray hair and kind eyes. She had been studying the Devourer threat for years. "Because if we do not help them, we are next," Helen said simply. "The Devourers are not going to stop with Federation space. They will keep coming until they have consumed every living being in the galaxy." Carl nodded. "Helen is right. This is not about helping the Federation. This is about survival, our survival." "What do we know about the current situation?" asked Governor Lisa Shun of New Hope. Helen activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red areas marked where the Devourers had attacked. The pattern was spreading fast toward the center of Federation space. "The Xanthari home system is completely gone," Helen reported. 3 billion people just vanished. The Catherian trade networks have been cut off. The Federation is losing approximately 1 star system every 36 hours. The room fell silent. Even the people who hated the Federation were shocked by the scale of the destruction. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" Carl asked. "At this rate, less than a year," Helen replied. "But Carl, there is something else. The Devourers are not just attacking randomly, they are targeting specific worlds. The ones with the highest populations and the most advanced technology." Carl understood immediately. "They are going for the biggest sources of energy first." "Exactly," Helen said. "And once they consume the Federation core worlds, they will have enough power to spread out and hunt down smaller targets." "Like us," Governor Santos leaned forward. "So what are you proposing, Admiral?" Carl took a deep breath. "We implement the Lazarus Protocol. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. The Lazarus Protocol was the emergency plan they had developed in case of a galactic-level threat. It would require every human ship, every human soldier, and every human scientist to work together. The Federation has 800 years of expansion and thousands of member worlds, Carl continued. We have 13 planets and a population of barely 50 million. The numbers are impossible. But humans have always been good at beating impossible odds. What about our technology advantage? Asked Governor Wilson. Will it be enough? Helen answered that question. Our phase-shifting technology makes us invisible to devourer sensors. Our hybrid reactors give us 3 times the power of Federation. Ships, our quantum weapons can actually damage them. Yes, we have advantages, but we are still vastly outnumbered. Then we need to be smart about how we use those advantages, Carl said. We cannot fight them head-on. We need to hit them where they do not expect it. Danny stepped forward with a tactical display. Sir, I have been working on battle plans with the other military commanders. We think we can help the Federation, but only if they agree to work with us. What do you mean? Carl asked. We give them our technology, Danny explained. We share our weapons, our defenses, our tactics. In return, they give us command authority over their forces. The room erupted in surprised voices. Sharing human technology with the Federation was something they had never considered. Are you insane? Governor Wilson shouted. Give them our secrets? After what they did to us? Tom, listen to me, Carl said firmly. If we do not share our technology, the Federation will fall within months. And then the Devourers will come for us with all the power they absorbed from consuming trillions of beings. Helen supported Carl's position. The Admiral is right. We need the Federation's ships and soldiers. We have better weapons, but they have numbers. Together we might have a chance. And if we refuse? Asked Governor Santos. Then we watch the galaxy burn, Carl replied, and then we burn with it. The debate continued for 2 hours. In the end, the vote was close. 7 colonies voted to help the Federation. 5 voted against. It was enough. Contact the Federation High Council, Carl ordered Betty. Tell them we are willing to provide military assistance, but we have conditions. What conditions? Danny asked. Carl smiled grimly. Complete tactical. Authority over all Federation forces? Our intelligence shows that standard Federation military doctrine is useless against the Devourers. We have developed new strategies, but they require absolute coordination. They will never agree to that, Governor Wilson said. The Federation has never let a non-member species command their forces. Then they will die, Carl said simply. And we will have to face the Devourers alone. As the meeting ended, Carl stood looking at the tactical displays. The red areas on the galaxy map were growing larger every hour. Somewhere out there, the monsters were consuming entire worlds full of innocent people. The Federation had made their choice 7 years ago when they let humans leave without a word. Now humanity was about to make theirs. They were going to save the galaxy, even if the galaxy did not deserve it. But first, they had to convince the Federation to swallow their pride and accept help from the species they had thrown away. That might be the hardest battle of all. The Federation High Council was in complete chaos when the human fleet appeared at the edge of their capital system. Counselor Vexcaller, the same Xanthari who had ordered humanity's exile 7 years ago, stood at the main viewing window watching. In disbelief. Nearly 200 human vessels had just jumped out of hyperspace and were taking formation around what was left of the Federation defense fleet. Vexcaller's hands were shaking. In the past week, he had watched 17 star systems go silent. The Federation's most powerful fleets had been destroyed without even slowing down the attackers. The monsters that the humans had warned them about were real, and they were unstoppable. Sir, the human fleet is trying to contact us, reported the communications officer. His voice was barely above a whisper. Like everyone else in the council chamber, he was terrified. Put them on the main screen, Vexcaller ordered. Trying to keep his voice steady, Admiral Carl Rodriguez appeared on the display. The human looked calm and professional, completely different from the desperate panic that had taken over the Federation leadership. Behind him, Vex Calor could see the bridge of a human warship that looked nothing like any Federation vessel he had ever seen. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Colonial Fleet," Carl said. "We have received your distress calls and are prepared to offer military assistance against the Devourer threat." The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Councillor Yeltrenax of the Aquarian Collective leaned forward in his chair. He was a tall, thin alien with green skin and large black eyes. "Admiral, we do not understand," Yeltrenax said. "Your species was relocated beyond Federation borders 7 years ago. Why have you returned to help us?" Carl's expression did not change. "Because despite everything that has happened between our governments, the Devourers represent a threat to all sentient life in the galaxy. Our disagreement is with Federation leadership, not with the billions of innocent beings who are under attack." Vex Calor felt a mix of shame and desperate hope. The humans had every reason to hate the Federation. They had been thrown out like criminals despite centuries of loyal service. Now they were offering to help save the very people who had exiled them. "What do you require from us?" Vex Calor asked, though he already suspected he would not like the answer. "Complete tactical authority over all Federation forces," Carl replied without hesitation. "Our intelligence indicates that conventional Federation military doctrine is completely ineffective against Devourer technology. We have developed new strategies and weapons, but they require absolute coordination to work properly." The council chamber fell silent. The request was beyond unprecedented. No non-Federation species had ever commanded Federation forces. The very idea went against 800 years of tradition and law, but the alternative was extinction. Councillor Mel Variz of the Crystalline Confederation spoke up. She was an elderly alien whose body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. "Admiral Rodriguez, you must understand how difficult this request is for us," she said. "The Federation has never placed its military under foreign command. How can we trust you with the lives of trillions of our citizens?" Carl smiled for the first time since the transmission began. It was not a happy smile, but it was not cruel either. "With respect, Counselor, your citizens are already dying. In the past week, you have lost more people than died in the last century of Federation wars combined. Your military doctrine, your weapons, your strategies have all failed completely. Against this enemy," Carl gestured to someone off-screen. "Captain Kate Sullivan, begin deployment of the Mirror Protocol." On the Federation sensors, something impossible began to happen. The human ships started to move with a precision that amazed the alien observers. Instead of forming the traditional battle lines that Federation doctrine called for, they scattered into seemingly random patterns throughout the star system. Then, one by one, they began to disappear. "Sir," the Federation tactical officer reported, his voice filled with confusion, "we are losing the human ships on all sensors. It is like they are just vanishing into nothing." Vex Calor stared at his display screens. 200 human warships had simply disappeared without a trace. "Admiral, what kind of technology is this?" "Not cloaking," Carl replied. "Quantum phase shifting. We learned to bend space and time itself during our exile. The Devourers cannot destroy what they cannot detect or target." Dr. Helen Wright appeared on the screen next to Carl. The human scientist looked tired but determined. "Counselors, the Devourers use quantum resonance to locate and destroy their enemies," Helen explained. "All Federation technology operates on frequencies that they can easily track. But our phase-shifted vessels exist in multiple dimensional states at the same time. To the Devourers, we might as well be ghosts." "But the power requirements," Councillor Yultrenax protested. "Our calculations show that such technology would need the energy output of an entire star to function." "It would," Helen agreed, "if you were using Federation power generation methods. We developed something much better during our exile. The revelation that humanity had achieved controlled fusion-fission hybrid reactors sent shockwaves through the Federation scientific community. The technology had been theoretical for centuries, Considered too dangerous to actually attempt. You were right to be cautious, Carl admitted. We lost 3 entire colonies in the early experiments. Millions of people died, but we kept trying because we had to. The Federation had the luxury of being careful. We had the necessity of survival. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Federation command center. The tactical officer's face went pale as he read his instruments. "Sir, massive hyperspace signatures detected on the system's edge," he reported. "It is them, the Devourers are here." On the main display, the view switched to long-range sensors. What appeared made even the experienced Federation counselors gasp in terror. Dozens of massive black ships were emerging from hyperspace. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in writhing tentacles and pulsing with dark energy. "All Federation ships. This is Admiral Rodriguez." Carl's voice came over the communication system. "Do not engage the enemy. Repeat, do not engage. Take defensive positions around the planet and wait for our signal." "Admiral," Vex Calor said urgently, "surely you cannot face that fleet with just 200 ships." "We have over 500 vessels in this system." "Your 500 ships would be destroyed in minutes," Carl replied bluntly. "The Devourers have consumed the energy of entire star systems. They are more powerful than anything the Federation has ever faced, but they have never faced humanity." The Devourer fleet moved toward the planet with terrible purpose. Their black ships seemed to absorb light itself, creating dark spots against the stars. As they approached, Federation sensors detected massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. "They are preparing to fire," the tactical officer reported. "Energy levels are off our scales." "Now," Carl said simply, the space around the Devourer fleet suddenly filled with explosions. The human ships, still invisible to enemy sensors, had opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. Bright flashes of energy struck the massive black vessels, and for the first time in recorded history, Devourer ships began to take damage. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Melvarese. "Nothing can hurt them." "We have tried everything." "You tried energy weapons?" Dr. Wright explained as the battle raged around them. "The Devourers absorb energy and use it to make themselves stronger. But our quantum disruptors work differently. They do not add energy to their targets. They remove it. They create areas of space where matter cannot exist." The largest Devourer ship, apparently the flagship, began to turn toward the planet. Its weapons were charging for what looked like a planet-killing blast. "Federation vessels, attack pattern Gamma," Carl ordered. "Target the flagship's weapon systems with everything you have." "But Admiral," Vex Calor protested, "you said our weapons were useless." "They are against the ship's hull," Carl replied. "But we just created weak spots in their armor." "Hit those exact coordinates and hit them now." The Federation fleet opened fire. Their energy beams, guided by human targeting data, struck the damaged areas of the Devourer flagship. The combination of human quantum disruptors and Federation firepower was devastating. The massive enemy ship began to break apart. "One down," Carl said. 43 to go." As the battle continued around them, Vex Calor realized that everything had changed. The humans were not just offering to help the Federation. They were saving it. The species that had been dismissed as troublemakers and exiled like criminals had returned as the galaxy's saviors. The Federation had let humans leave without a word 7 years ago. Now those same humans were the only thing standing between civilization and complete destruction. And they were winning. The Battle of Zarian 7 lasted 14 hours and changed the galaxy forever. When the last Devourer ship exploded in a flash of dark energy, Admiral Carl Rodriguez stood in the Federation Council chambers, not as an exile or a refugee, but as an equal. The human fleet had done the impossible. They had destroyed the largest Devourer assault force in recorded history. Counselor Vex Calor looked at the battle reports with disbelief. His hands were still shaking, but now it was from amazement, rather than fear. "The casualty reports," he said, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. "We lost fewer than 30 vessels." The Devourers lost their entire assault fleet of 44 ships. How is this possible? Carl stood straight and proud. Behind him, Captain Kate Sullivan and Dr. Helen Wright waited quietly. They had all been part of the victory, but Carl spoke for humanity. Years of preparation, Carl replied. When you exiled us, you forced us to become something new. We could not rely on Federation technology or Federation protection anymore. We had to develop our own solutions to survive. Dr. Wright stepped forward with her analysis ready. Helen had been studying the battle results for hours, trying to understand exactly why the human tactics had worked so well. The Devourers use quantum resonance to locate and target their enemies, Helen explained. All Federation technology operates on frequencies they can easily detect and lock onto. But our phase-shifted vessels exist in multiple dimensional states at the same time. To their sensors, we were like ghosts that they could not see or hit. Counselor Yil Trenax leaned forward in his chair. The tall alien's black eyes were wide with curiosity. But Dr. Wright, the power requirements for such technology should be enormous. Our best scientists calculated that phase shifting would require the energy output of an entire star. It would, Helen agreed with a small smile, if you were using Federation power generation methods. During our exile, we developed something much better. The revelation about human fusion-fission hybrid reactors had already shocked the Federation's scientific community. But now they were learning that it was just the beginning of what humanity had achieved. You were right to be cautious about such experiments, Carl admitted. We lost 3 entire colonies in the early testing phases. 3 million people died in reactor failures and dimensional accidents, but we kept trying because we had no choice. The Federation had the luxury of playing it safe. We had the desperate need to survive. Captain Sullivan stepped forward to add her own perspective. Kate was a tough woman with short black hair and scars from the recent battle. She had commanded the human fleet's tactical operations during the fight. Admiral, we should tell them about the real cost, Kate said quietly. They need to understand what we sacrificed to become strong enough to save them. Carl nodded. It was time for complete honesty. Counselors, in the 7 years since our exile, humanity has lost over 8 million people, Carl said. Not from war or disease, but from the dangers of pushing beyond known science. We tested technologies that killed entire research teams. We colonized worlds that turned out to be death traps. We took risks that no sane civilization would take. The Federation Council members sat in stunned silence. They had thought the humans were simply lucky or naturally gifted with technology. They had not realized the terrible price humanity had paid to develop their advantages. But every death taught us something, Carl continued. Every failure made us stronger. Every disaster forced us to try harder. We became powerful because we had to become powerful. There was no other choice. Over the following months, the Human Federation Alliance grew stronger and more complex. Human technology and tactics proved devastatingly effective against the Devourers in battle after battle. Meanwhile, Federation resources and manpower provided the scale necessary for a truly galactic defense. The cooperation was not always easy. Many Federation species still harbored resentment about taking orders from the humans they had exiled. Many humans still felt bitter about their treatment and wanted revenge rather than partnership, but the Devourer threat made such feelings irrelevant. When faced with extinction, pride became a luxury no one could afford. Commander Lisa Brooks, now serving as the main liaison between the human colonies and the Federation government, stood in the observation deck of the new Joint Command Station. Through the large windows, she could see human and Federation ships working together to prepare for what everyone hoped would be the final battle. Captain Stephen Wells joined her at the window. Stephen had been promoted to head of intelligence operations, coordinating information between human and Federation forces. It is strange, is it not? Lisa said, watching as a human destroyer docked with a Xanthari supply ship. 7 years ago, they threw us out because they said we were too dangerous and unpredictable. Now, those same qualities are the only things standing between them and complete destruction. Stephen nodded. The Federation learned something important about humanity during our exile. We do not just survive when things get bad, we thrive. And when we are pushed to our absolute limits, we become something more powerful than anyone ever imagined. The final phase of the war was about to begin. Human intelligence had located the Devourer home base, a massive structure hidden in the dark space between galaxies. It was from there that the monsters had launched their assault on the Milky Way. Admiral Rodriguez had proposed a desperate plan. Instead of waiting for more Devourer fleets to arrive, the combined Human Federation forces would attack the enemy at their source. It was incredibly risky, but it was also the only way to end the threat permanently. "Admiral," Lisa said as Carl entered the observation deck, "the fleet reports are ready. We have assembled the largest military force in galactic history." Carl looked out at the assembled ships. Over 3,000 vessels from dozens of different species, all working together under human command. It was something that would have been impossible before the Devourer crisis. "What about the new weapons?" Carl asked. Dr. Wright appeared with her latest update. "The Quantum Nova torpedoes are ready for deployment. We have enough firepower to destroy entire star systems if necessary." The Quantum Nova torpedoes were humanity's latest and most dangerous invention. They used the same dimensional manipulation technology as the phase shift drives, but focused it into a weapon that could tear holes in space itself. "And the cost?" Carl asked quietly. Helen's expression grew sad. "We lost another research station last week. 200 more scientists. The technology is still not completely safe." Carl closed his eyes for a moment. Every human advantage had come at a terrible price in lives. But without those sacrifices, the galaxy would already be consumed by the Devourers. "Sir," Stephen reported, "we are receiving final confirmation from all fleet commanders. Everyone is ready for the assault." Carl opened his eyes and looked out at the fleet one more time. Tomorrow, they would jump into hyperspace and travel to the edge of known reality to face an enemy that had destroyed countless other galaxies. "Send the signal," Carl ordered. "All ships, prepare for departure." As the massive fleet began to move, Carl thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. 7 years ago, the Federation had let humans leave without a word. They had thought they were solving a problem by getting rid of a troublesome species. Instead, they had created their own salvation. Humanity had been forced to become stronger, smarter, and more innovative than they ever could have been under Federation protection. The exile that was meant to diminish them had instead transformed them into something extraordinary. The final battle was still ahead, and victory was far from certain. But whatever happened, the galaxy would never again underestimate the species that had been thrown away and forgotten. The humans had left in silence 7 years ago. Now they were returning as the guardians of all life in the galaxy. The Federation would spend the rest of their existence trying to understand how they had been so wrong about humanity, but that was a lesson for another day. Right now, there was a war to win and a galaxy to save.